I want to welcome you to Dream Chasers Radio with me, your host, Yaya Diamond. What's up, peoples? How you doing? It is a great day. Oh my gosh. You guys, listen. There's just so many different things going on in the world. There's so many people just writing about their experiences, about all the things that are happening that we don't even know about. And I want to bring attention to these authors. Authors are amazing. They change the world. They tutor us. They teach us in our classrooms. Books are so important, and without them, we'd be idiots, and we wouldn't know anything. So I want to say thank you to all the authors out there. I have an amazing, amazing guest on my show. Mr. Tannis is here to talk about his book. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Yaya. It's a pleasure to be here and a great honor.
Oh, thank you. The honor is mine. You can't have it. No. So thank you again so much. So tell me about yourself.
Okay, I'm Ernest G. Tannis. In Arabic, it's Ibn George Tanus, because my father's from Lebanon, my mother's parents from Syria. I was born in Ottawa, Canada, thank goodness. And I became a lawyer unexpectedly. It's another story, but I did become a lawyer in 1976.
What?
Yeah, that's about 46 years ago. As of this year, April 1st, 2022, I stopped practicing law. It took about 2 years. You can ask my Jeanette Reichen, my executive assistant, who helped me through the process and closing down a law practice of 46 years,
wow,
which was worldwide. I work at a telescope, binoculars, and microscope level. And then in 1985, for many spiritual reasons, my heart told me to leave a lucrative law practice, to liquidate all my assets, and I wanted to find out what Jesus meant by mediation, because there's no teaching in law school about mediation, negotiation. It was all about litigation and how to win a case. Now that's been much improved. It's from 1985 to 1992. In that period of time, I went around the world. I met the best thinkers in the thinking in the world. I was so many mentors. And I wrote the first book in Canada in 1989 on alternative dispute resolution that works, which was redone in 2010, edited, at which time my original book is Everyone at the Table, 18 Life Lessons in Problem Solving, was published. And that book is now being republished this year by authors, Tranquility Press, who did a beautiful thing getting you to do this interview with me. They've been really terrific to work with. I call them ATP. And we're getting that book out, and it's getting translated into Spanish from Cuba.
Oh, wow.
Book launch there on my birthday, November 29th. There'll be a book launch here. So I don't know. It's like what you were talking about with me at the beginning. But, when you follow your heart and you believe in the faith that you're following, you never know where it's going to take. Jeanette was a scuba diver for years, and that's how I met her through a case I had with her. And sometimes it was like getting into a sailboat and going where the wind takes you in life. And I'm very, very fortunate. I don't have any assets or money right now, but I do have a great sense of wealth for the life purpose journey.
Wow. Okay, so let's back up a little, because you said you got into law by accident. I mean, how did that happen?
Oh, girl, what a great question. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I've never really written about this, but I'm going to be very succinct. I did my Bachelor of Arts at Carleton University in Ottawa. I had two English teachers, Doug Wertel and his wife, and then Gus Heidelman. And I did a lot of stuff in university as a student, and we did the first students assessment of professors in Canada. I was on Helping in Students Council. I went to national students associations. I just enjoyed doing that. And I wasn't sure what to do. I wanted to be a librarian. I applied to be a librarian.
A librarian? I mean,
yes,
okay, wait. Hold on a second. Hold on. How do you get from a librarian to a lawyer? I mean, they're in, L-A-L-I. I mean, they're close to each other. But I don't see it. Okay, you gotta go ahead, continue.
Well, you know what? I didn't see it either. It must be something from the universe. you know, a good friend who was a big supporter in the 80s said, you know, everyone who has passed this earth in an earthly manner is on a board of directors in heaven. So my English professors, when they saw that I didn't get what I wanted to do, they said to me, Ernie, the way you think and what you do, we think you'd be a good contribution to the legal system because of your humanitarian approach to everything. And I was shocked. I said, going into law? I mean, it was the last thing I would have ever thought of. And how would I even get into law school? So I applied to Ottawa U Common Law, wow, 1973. After I got my Bachelor of Arts, which also means BA, bugger all. And PhD is piled higher and deeper too. So these degrees are kind of funny, but I applied on the last day allowed, and they had over 1,000 applicants, and they were only taking just about 100 people. So I set up this interview to get into law school. It was on a Friday, and my older brother, Mitchell, talked to me Thursday night, and I said, there's no way I'm going to get into law school. First of all, I didn't even think of going to law school. I know my English professors give me a really beautiful inspiration, but I said, look, there's got 900 people ahead of me. I got good grades, not top grades. I don't have a master's degree. And my older brother said, Ernie, it's not that you got to think different. It's not that you want to get into law school. You've got to think that the legal system, the law school needs you. I thought, oh, really? So I remember the next day, Yaya, I'll never forget this. I'm really glad you asked that question. I've never been asked that before. The next day I'm in this interview with Professor Kavanaugh. I remember his name. He's as the natives say, he's a walk the spirit staircase. And he said, Ernest Tannis, you come in at the last minute, you only have a BA, we got lots of people ahead of you with more degrees and better grades. And at that time, it was the last year you had to do the law school test to get in. And he said, why should we get you into this law school? And I remember distinctly at that moment when he asked me that, I didn't have a clue what to say. And I remember I said something. I don't remember what I said. Honestly, I don't remember a word of what I said. And he said, he had told me, Ernie, even after this interview, I got to go to a committee and you're not going to get an answer today. And when I finished, and I came out of this bubble, I went into some, deference to my gut. And he said, you're in. I said, what do you mean I'm in? He said, you're coming to this law school. I said, what did I say? Oh, I have no idea, but I ended up in law school, and
oh, wow,
very enjoyable experience. And I did a lot of joking in law school. That's another story, but I came out with some great classmates. And then I realized through another story, my first year, that reminded me why I was in law school.
That is an amazing story. It's so funny because I went to college and my major was law.
Oh.
And my teacher told me, she said, I'm so sorry. You're not fit to be a lawyer. She says, I feel like as if we would crush your world. She said, you're such a happy person and such a cool person to be around. This would literally turn you into a crabby person. And I'm like, okay. She's like, I don't suggest that you continue. Maybe go ahead and get some contracts and take some contract classes. But as far as lawyers are concerned, I can't imagine you going up to the judge going, hi, I am going to be your lawyer today. I mean, it's like, that's me. So she's like, no, I don't think that's going to be good.
Well, we have similar, in my table book, every chapter is a real story, local, national, international stories, including civil wars and everything. And they're all about the themes, but every chapter has an original quote. One of them is, it's about love, not law. And Jeanette has her original quote. Jeanette, what's your original quote that you like?
My original quote is, when the world is no longer under your feet, all you have left to stand on is what you stood for. That,
wow, that is
totally applied to me. So I really resonated with that one. Yeah,
me too.
And
Oh yeah.
in the new book with the tributes from readers, are so inspiring. One of the original quotes that really struck me, and I know the story, how it came to me and with who I was with, but it's world peace through inner peace. And when you look at all the conflict in the world, and
Ugh.
in world leaders or government or business, who are you as an individual? Where is your inner peace? What is your life purpose? What is your legacy? Do you care about your legacy? Whether you have money or power or prestige, you could be, there's probably more stories than there are stories, even in South Africa before apartheid was abolished. There were people on the ground that are not even known to the humanity, all these Nobel Peace Prizes. It's individuals. Start with yourself. Then you can work that out, and you'll never know, as you said earlier, which I really like, you never know how many people you're going to touch. And you use the word, teaching, but you know that famous phrase, we teach those things we need to learn.
Yeah. I just absolutely love what you've done. You said you liquidated everything. That must have been hard. What was that like for you?
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
My wife, Mary, was my true love, 25 years. She helped me with my kids, and I helped her with her daughter. And I was then in 1985 in a major Toronto-based law firm. I was going to be a partner. I had $500,000 in the bank. I was making lots of money. I was going to be a multi-millionaire lawyer. And I said to Mary, nothing I learn about, but why we live on this earth. It doesn't make sense to me to stay in this. But she said, Ernie, what are we going to do? I said, I want to drop everything and follow the teachings, the great teachings. She said, well, how are we going to survive? I said, God will provide. I said, well, how's that going to pay the bills? I said, I don't know, Mary, but if you want, I'll do this path. There's a funny picture from England with two lawyers fighting over a cow. One farmer's pulling the head, one farmer's pulling the tail, and two lawyers are milking it. But on the other side, I wrote an article by Shakespeare's phrase, let's kill all the lawyers, which is actually a compliment to lawyers. In one of Shakespeare's plays, a king was going to take over a community, and his lieutenant said, how are we going to stop the public from rebelling? He said, let's kill all the lawyers, because the lawyers will protect the people against the authoritarianism of government. And so I got her consent, reluctant consent, but loving consent. She was quite a believer. She said, Ernie, if that's where your heart's at, I will follow that. And I got emotional because I liquidated that $500,000. I left a multi-million-dollar law practice, and I just went on this journey. And I met people and heard things and learned things that I never, ever would have come across, except for that faith. So the reason I got emotional when you said how hard it was, for me, in some ways, it wasn't hard because I didn't pay attention to the, be of the world, but not in it. But Mary really had to accept this. And it was really hard on her. And I know she's in the board of directors. And I felt very bad about that, but she stuck with me right to the end. So I thank her for that.
Wow.
Well, thanks for getting that out of me.
No, it's, a lot of people need to see that. I mean, we're people. We go through our ups and our downs. It's not always up. Sometimes there are downs. And to understand the journey and where you've come from and now where you're at now. And obviously this is not the destination, but it is a point in the timeline. And it's a very important one for people to see that, you see me up. You always see me up. But let me tell you, behind the scenes, I wasn't always up.
Yeah.
And people need to see that, because a lot of people are going through things that they never, oh, this person never went through it. Well, they did.
Yes.
You just didn't see it,
Yes.
And I want people to see that. I want people to understand that it's okay. It's okay. It's a natural progression of life to be up and then down and then up and then down and then up and then
Right.
down again. And
Right.
it's okay. She must have been an amazing woman.
Oh, I got a whole wall in my apartment dedicated to our trips and our journeys and our. No, she's been shining. I know she's shining on me. I think it's one of the reasons, among others, that I made it through. But you never know. You're right about the ups and downs. And and the one thing I never did well, which I'm starting to do now more, is the Native people taught me many things. I had 4 chapters in my table book about work, interaction with the Native communities, the wisdom, what they've been through, and what I learned from them. But one of them is you have to self-divulge. And I have not been doing that. I was told by many people, don't keep your light under a bushel, come, get out there and tell your story. I said, well, the story is about my faith. It's not about me. It's about my faith. But one person told me that people will believe a message if they believe the messenger. So I think with the authors Tranquility Press and the first interview, now this one, I'm feeling safe. I did 260 weekly radio shows worldwide on alternative dispute resolution with the support of many scholars, thinkers, writers. Like, I couldn't believe the number of people that supported this this person that comes from nowhere. Some people say, "Who do you think you are?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I'm anything. I think the message is something." But one of them was, you got to self-divulge. You got to do your healing. And then in 1992, when I was 7 years out of the practice, I had no money, I had no clients, I had no assets. And the Native leaders in Akwesasne, one of whom was the leader in the mediation project there, which I believe is a model for the world, called Skenengoa, Mohawk for Great Peace. Her name is Jolene Adams. We're having an award ceremony for her this year. It's called a My World Peace Award, named after, with Emil Canna, met me in the 1980s. We set up a nonprofit called My World, children helping other children pick up the pieces. He went around the world where there were civil wars and disasters, and we worked on, it was a really interesting project. That's another story, but he, in his name, started this My World Award for peace with justice. Peace without justice is no peace at all. So we're doing a ceremony in Akwesasne for her, but she told me that the elders said in 1992, when I finished my stint with them, Akwesasne, is a territory that's in New York State, Quebec, Ontario, 2 governments. There was the military, there were murders, there was violence. I got into the middle of that. That's another story of how that happened, but it was the Great Enlightenment, and I didn't know what to do, honestly. And Mary said, "What are we going to do, Ernie?" I said, "I don't know. I just have to keep believing that there's a reason." And then she said, the elders told me, "Ernie, you got to go back to the law practice." I said, "What? You want me to go back to a law practice?" I'll never forget, she said, "Ernie, in our teachings, the peacemaker said, when you cross the river from where you are to another community, like you did here, and you came here to help us, but we also helped you." They gave me an Indian name, which is a great honor. Tagwatakwas, bounce back, at a ceremony. It was a great honor. And it's a very interesting name. It's got a story, but she said, "You've got to go back, Ernie." And I thought, you know what? I'm going to respect their peacemaker, because they're very, very spiritual. All you hear about all the Native stuff and everything, but they have a beautiful heritage. So I did go back to my law practice. It was, I think it was June 1st, 1992, and I knew a lawyer in a firm. And anyway, that's another story, but it was so funny. Len Max is a great friend and mentor. He just passed away. He must be on the board of directors. Okay, so this firm took me in. I had no money, no assets, no clients, but they believed in my journey. They believed in what I was trying to say to improve access to justice for the public. and help lawyers help their clients better and work with other professionals. So I did go back and I did that, and I realized they were right. We had a big conference about their work and what they did in their mediation center. It's worth repeating. I believe it's a model for the world, and I'm gonna actually promote that at the United Nations. But it worked out. Like it's somehow I survived it. You know, you get complaints to lawsuits, you get lawsuits. Somebody pointed out to me, all the complaints and lawsuits against me were all pro bono clients. You know,
That makes no sense.
oh my God, you know what? You know, everyone's, you know, whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm really grateful that it's, you know, we all got to be grateful moment to moment, right? Yeah, you look around the world.
Yes.
And when you watch the news, I mean, it's everybody's dying, killing, and violence, but you got to just stay with your inner peace. And I feel good. I don't know what's happening next. And people around me sometimes they worry, you know, what are you going to do? And I say, I don't know. I'm going to do what I've done since 1985. We're going to stick with the journey with this faith.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. You know, Ernie, I have to say that you have so much to give. And you know, I'm not sure what's on the table for you next, but it would be wonderful if you would write a book to mentor the lawyers out there that may be going through their down. That would be amazing. Yeah, I think that would be amazing.
Well, you know, that's a great idea. I've been interacting. I mean, I've had about 15 articling students and law students, and I worked with some of the greatest lawyers and judges and retired judges about improving access to justice. And I hadn't actually thought about that. I thought about writing a story, but you know, Jeanette, mark it down. I think that's an idea. That's a great idea, Yaya. I really appreciate it. It probably would be part of my own catharsis, right?
That might be. I mean, you know, what led you to this point where you're at today is everyone at the table. Am I correct? Is that the name of the book? I just want to make sure I got that.
Yep.
How did you come up with that and why?
Oh my God, that's the greatest question. You interview, I do the interviews, but I love being interviewed because I see great interviews. That's a great question. Okay. In my interaction as a conflict resolution consultant with the Canadian Institute for Conflict Resolution, which I co-founded in 1988, I got involved, as I told you, with this incredible Iroquois Confederacy Mohawk community in Akwesasne. And then when they were able to heal their community through this mediation process, which I write about in the book, their processes are more than intelligent. They took the best of the West, but they kept their original teachings. And then for those that know this, maybe you want to look it up if you don't, but there was an Oka crisis in Canada, OKA, in the Mohawk territory. It was the reasons for it, it would take too long to explain, but it was the Mohawk Oka community in a conflict with the government military over a golf course. And there was a unsolved murder in there with a police officer. And there were some unsolved murders at Akwesasne. And I was asked to go to a session in Montreal, Quebec, to debrief that Oka crisis, which got worldwide attention. Professor John Ziegler, which was a great supporter, Canada's leading Middle East expert in the International School of International Affairs at Carleton, he called these crises in Canada that got worldwide attention the Middle East of North America. And as I talked to Yaya, because of my ancestors in the Middle East, I think on reflection, part of my appeal to my heart on this was because of that. And I was invited to a debriefing session in Montreal. So at that session, there was a few hundred people, every level of government, every police force. The Deputy Minister of Indian Affairs of Quebec was the chairman. And I was asked to talk about conflict resolution. I didn't talk about what happened in Akwesasne. That's their business. But I talked about the process of conflict resolution, remembering to follow the great psychologist Fisher from Canada. Before you talk about an issue, talk about how you talk about an issue, which is the first step and finding the common ground. And I remember saying, I said, I don't doubt that everyone worked hard. I don't know what came to me, Yaya, that moment. I remember that moment like it was yesterday or a minute ago. I remember sitting there with all these people and all these dignitaries and all these entities. And I looked around and I don't know where this came from. That happens to me a lot. I said, is everyone at the table? And the place went quiet. And I said, you know, Mr. Deputy Minister, I'm not suggesting that it wasn't organized, but some of the problems is that if there's one person missing from the table, either they didn't want to come, they didn't want to stay, or they weren't invited. And if everyone's not at the table, sometimes when you're not invited, it's in my book, if you're not invited and everyone's celebrating all the peacemaking on the ground floor, but the people that are invited on the ground or on the basement, they blow up the house.
Yeah.
And I said, is everyone at the table? And I left it. So the next day, people from Oka called Akwesasne and said, can we write to the Minister of Indian Affairs of Canada? We'd like to use Ernest Tannis's question, is everyone at the table? Because we were not invited.
Wow.
And that really struck me so when somebody kept saying, you know, you got to write, every time I did training anywhere in the world, somebody said, you got to write your stories. You got to write your stories. I didn't have an idea. I didn't even expect to write stories, but that's how it came about. And then minister got the letter, and it didn't go down well with some of the people I was working with the government, because they thought they missed something. And I met the guy that was handling the file, and I said, look, I'm really sorry. It was just a question. I didn't make a statement. I just asked the question. And then I thought, you know what? That question should be posed in every situation, whether individual, institutional, international. Is everyone at the table?
That's right.
And are they being heard? Not listened to, heard. And I think that's a big missing piece.
I think so too. And, you know, and you're so right. It can be that, you know, is everyone at the table in a band? Is everyone at the table at the classroom? Is everyone at the table in a meeting? Doesn't matter what kind of meeting it is. Is everyone at the table at the government offices? Is everyone at the table at your job? I mean, literally, that question is a question of just a roundabout question for every single situation, even in a family setting. Is everyone at the table?
Yes, thank you very much, Yaya. You really hit the nail on the head. But you know what we have to nail is to get the word out to the world. And another thing, and I don't know how much time we have that, but one of the other things that inspired me was a conversation with Professor Hertzogis. He was the rector at St. Paul University, which is a Catholic college, the largest collection of ancient books from the Bible outside of the Vatican. And somehow all the universities had to decide whether to support this idea of the Canadian Institute for Conflict Resolution, which they did on the condition that I became the first executive director, and the Donner Foundation, you know, helped us get off the ground. But I had to, that's another thing I had to do. But I remember he told me in his office, and they did the theologians did a 12-page report on what they thought this journey was speaking to. They called me proleptic. I thought that was a disease. I said, I have to go to a hospital? They said, no, proleptic means you act and talk like something's happening when it's not here yet. And that brings enthusiasm, which is the Greek for onteos, God within. But he told me back in 1989, he said, Ernie, the signs are here that what's going to happen in the West is the collapse of empires, including the United States and others, similar to the collapse of the empire, the Roman Empire. And he was a Roman Empire scholar for the Vatican. He said, one of the reasons we support this is that when that collapse takes place, the general public have to learn how to resolve their own issues and problems. And that's what they did back when the Roman Empire collapsed. And this is what empowers the people. And what empowers the people is what's going to change things. Like Noam Chomsky, the great thinker, you know, wrote a book called, he was one of the guests on my show, you know, Manufacturing Consent. like how people get information, especially today, millions of pieces of information, to get people to think a certain way on any issue. Said manufacturing consent, the only way you transcend that and bring the public, the politicians involved, is when the public says, this is what we want. And I think this is what the public has to do.
We definitely have to do that. There's a lot of things out there that are not right. And I think that a lot of our government officials, and if I may get into it, like you said, they're not at the table. And if they were, they're listening at us and not to us.
Right.
They're appeasing their attendants as being attentive to our needs, and that is not what what we need. What we need is for a government official, or for anyone, even if you're the head of your home, the head of your business, whatever, you need to write these things down. And like you said, are you at the table? Is everyone at the table? Is an amazing question, because literally it's like saying you're here, but you mentally may not be.
Yes. That's good. In on that point, that's a great point. One of the training pieces I've worked with for decades everywhere is ask people, usually we'll have more than 20 people in a room, and they all top people, say two people talk to each other at the same time, and then report out about what you heard. Now, this is a great exercise. Try it.
I have.
Oh, good. It
does not come back well.
So when everyone's reporting out, well, some people said, I didn't hear anything because I was talking. I heard something, and said, the thing is, and what you just prompted me to think about this is a very good piece. And I've got, Jeanette, I got to write this story because how this worked in another conflict. But when you're talking to somebody and they're quiet, you're thinking they're listening to you. Well, they're only hearing you because they're thinking about what they're going to say in response. So one of the techniques that's worked so well is when someone finishes saying something, before the other person talks, to say, can you please tell us what you heard this person just say? And 50% of the time, it's not what they said. So that's what you said, like and I think that's happening a lot today. And now is because everything's so global and so fast, we lose sight of the basic, simple principles of problem solving, caring for one another, seeking justice, seeking peace with justice, and leaving a good legacy, which is really, really important. So I think you just touched on another great point there. So thanks for getting that out of me.
I think, and I've learned to listen, and to listen within fluctuation. When a person says something important, they pause, or their voice tone goes up. If you're paying attention and not thinking about what you're going to say, but think about what they're saying.
Exactly.
And then you can get on the right page. You can literally be at the table, but you're not at the table if you're thinking along your own way, or you're thinking of the next sentence that you're going to say, because you haven't heard a word of what the importance that needs to be directed, and where we need to take this conversation. So literally, your book is, just the title of your book alone, should, inspire people to actually sit at the table and begin to listen, and not like, oh, I have this next thing I want to bring up. No, solve the current thing. Yeah. Let's solve this. Let's get at the same, let's get on the same wavelength here. And then we can all begin to actually comprehend each other and not talk at each other. Is everyone at the table?
Amen. It's really great when, it's, there's that question, there's a question, there was a theologian wrote a book called Do You Love Me? It was Jesus saying, well, who do they say that I am? But the other question is, do you understand me? So it's really interesting with all the words and all the news and everything. Do you understand me? Is really an important question. And you got to go, it's got a kind of a deep-rooted thinking. I've got this approach called the telescope view of the world, the binoculars and the microscope. We have to think on all the levels because every one of us is at all three levels. And we all, as you said, have our own pain.
Yeah.
And we have our own hopes. And we all have our own fears. And we all have our own beliefs. Oh, the belief systems are different. One of my shows, if I could say, I did one of my shows was on, there was a rabbi for Judaism, a minister for Christianity, and an imam for Islam. And I got a mediation piece that I'm finishing this year. Somebody said it's the most important piece I'd ever write, but it's about how these religions evolved and how they fit into everything else. But on that show, I also brought in an atheist, a humanist. And I said on that show, there are so many people I know that are really religious. I really think it's great. I trust them, but there's a lot of people that put religion on their sleeve, and I would not want to trust them. That was my first show, was on trust. And I said, here's how you discern trust. You think, everyone thinks, who are the 10 people I would trust to be on a desert island with, where you got to rely on one another? You know, read Lord of the Flies, what happened there. So who do you trust to be on a desert island with? And I said publicly, there are many people here, like my former client friend, who's a avowed atheist, a humanist. I'd feel more trust with him than a lot of other people that put their religion on their sleeve. So it's who you trust. That's one of the, every chapter is a question, and that's one of them. Who do you trust? Isn't that right, Yaya?
It is so right. You're so right. And I, you know, and I've had this discussion with people before where who do you trust? It's like, okay, so I would literally put my trust in the person that doesn't believe, because they're going to know about the camping. They're going to know about the survival. They're going to do their best to survive, while the other people are probably going to be praying and panicking and why have you forsaken me and all the pity patty and the pie. I don't want to be on that island with them. I'd rather be with the person that's the humanist, that I can literally get my hands dirty with and survive that outcome and survive that outcome. Definitely.
Wonderful. I love acronyms. So you just gave a new acronym, PAP, P-A-P-P. Pray and, what do you say? Pray and
freak out.
No, you said pray and something pity patty.
Oh yeah, the pity party. Yeah. Oh, woe is me. Why have you forsaken me?
Oh yeah,
I can just see it.
No, that's good. You know, in terms of last words, you know, you ever read these books, the last words of people, they're phenomenal. You know, including Job. You know, now, you know, the head of that, you know, his last words were now, you know, now I'll know. But in the Bible, one of the last words quoted for Jesus was in the Aramaic, Eloah, Eloah, lama sabachthani.
Right.
My Lord, as you know, why hast thou forsaken me? It's one of the greatest griefs in humanity. There's probably nobody I know that has not felt forsaken by somebody. And what did Jesus say? When he said, why hast thou forsaken me? And he turned to one of the people on the cross, he said, forgive them, they know not what they do. I mean, it's powerful, powerful stuff. But that is, you know, when I went to the hospital back in 1990, what year was that? Back in late 1990s, when Mary passed away, my daughter-in-law, she called me and said, Mary's in the ambulance, she's still alive. And I said, okay. What happened? And on my way to the hospital, I thought, you know, we got to fix this, we got to fix that. I want her to live. I felt bad about some things that were going on between us that weren't good, but the love was still there. I got to the room, it was full of friends and family. And I remember saying to Mary's sister, where's Mary? And she said, she's gone. I said, well, what part of the hospital did you go to? She said, no, Ernie, she's gone. I said, I don't know what you mean. She said, she's dead. You know, Yaya, at that moment, I experienced the darkest moment of my life. I actually fainted. She's dead. And then I remembered Ilwa, Ilwa, lema sabachthani. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? How many people feel when they are believers that God has
Yeah.
forsaken them? And I drew on that teaching. And I said, you know what? I got to trust. I got to trust this. But I was able to confess my sense that God had forsaken us. And then I realized that even Jesus said that. And then you learn to carry on.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Tannis, for being on the show. Where can people find your book? Is everyone at the table?
Well, you can call me Ernie the attorney. It's okay.
Ernie the attorney. Got it.
So Authors Tranquility Press has put it out on every major website, including Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If you look it up, it's all over the place. So it's just look, it's everyone at the table. It's the actual title is Everyone at the Table, 18 Life Lessons in Problem Solving. And there are 18 real stories. Can be read, every chapter can be read in less than 15 minutes. It's plain language, it's got graphics, it's got life lessons, not lessons, life lessons on teaching. It's life lessons I've learned. And people reflect on every chapter. And by the way, I've been getting feedback lately from a lot of people that a lot of people are just reading this book just to deal with everyday negotiations. Everyday negotiations. So, what's your end game? Is the game. Your end game is everyday negotiations and dealings. And I've been telling people are actually finding the book is helpful, whether it's family or business or politics or internet. It's just basic stuff. And I hope it helps a lot of people. It certainly has helped me to get through. And I'm going to follow up on your idea now. Well, you know what? I have a title of books I like to write. So this is really funny. So when a book is written, like we met with Catherine Gray, a great Canadian author. She's written 11 books. One's become a movie. We had lunch with her. I learned a lot. And so look, there's three things about a book. You have to write a book. You got to publish the book, and then you got to market the book. So I'm learning as I go. And then it takes years, like literally takes years to write a book. Like all my books took 3 to 5 years to write. Then it becomes a movie. And then it takes years and millions of dollars to make a movie. Then when you ask someone about a book or a movie, they tell you in 30 seconds what they think. So I said, I'm going to write a book on the title of books I like to write. So instead of doing all that, I just have a theme. I write it in a small page with some graphics and say, this is the book. So I got 33 books I'd like to write. That's going to be one of the books I'm going to do.
Wow. Well, thank you. I'm honored. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad I could be of assistance today. I was at the table.
Thank you. And because I'm still a lawyer, I'm not a practicing lawyer, but I can now say, thank you, Your Honor.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Oh my gosh. Okay. I feel all good. We're going to have that information in the description box below. And that way you guys can check it out for yourselves. And you have to ask yourself this question. And if you haven't been at the table for a while, maybe you need to kind of sit down and begin to learn how to listen and get this book. It'll help you through. Are you at the table? Is everyone else at the table? Have you been at the table? Have you been absent at the table? These are going to be the questions that I'm going to actually propose to you. If you are questioning your existence and your listening and your responses at that table, then you need to get this book. All right, guys, I'm just going to say bye for now. And hey, don't be mad at me. I'm just the deliverer of the message.
Well, as they say in Arabic, inshallah, God willing. And, one thing to remember, which you know about, but it's sometimes forgotten, 80% of communications are nonverbal.
Yes.
Facial expressions, sound of voice, other things. So we got to pay attention to all of it.
Definitely. So there you go, guys.
Thanks a lot. It's been really, really enjoyable.
And it has been on my part as well. Thank you so much. And thank you guys again. And don't forget to dare to be different. Until next time, guys. Bye.